Violette, great pleasure to have you here. Violette is actually also has a business degree from HEC Paris. Is this correct? And Sciences Po. Correct.
Hello.
So she did what you did, guys. And actually, my students met 30 people from HEC Paris last week. Okay. But Violette runs the broader sustainability program, which is called Zelar, and the social sustainability program, which is called Zelar. And Violette will tell us in a moment what Zelar actually means, what it stands for, and what she does in the context of her Zelar role at Veja. And we decided that we will do this guest lecture in the form of an interview. So I will play questions to Violette, 3, 4, 5 maybe. And then I'll turn to you and you can continue with questions. So be ready, okay? I'll start us off with a few questions and then it'll be over to you. So the first question to you, Violette, is indeed, what does Zelar actually mean? What does it stand for? And sorry, now I'm turning this. Tell us, since when does it exist within the Veja structure? Is it a new department that was there from the beginning, or has it just been founded? And what its current main focus is? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dorothy. Can you hear me well?
Very well.
Okay, perfect. So first, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm sorry it's not Francois, the founder of Veja, but he's traveling to Asia, so I'll do my best to represent and give you my inputs on Veja's practices, but best practices in the Amazon. So let me maybe just introduce myself very quickly. So I'm leading today the Zelar program inside Veja, but I've been working for Veja for many years now. And some years ago, I was coordinating the supply chain for cotton also in Brazil. So the Zelar program is a new program, actually quite new in the story of the brand, since it has been created 3 years ago. And Zelar is a Portuguese word. At Veja, we like to use Portuguese word. Veja itself is a Portuguese word. That means you can look, you can see everything. We don't have anything to hide. And so we also chose a Portuguese name for this new program. And Zelar in Portuguese, it has to do with the notion of the idea of taking care of something like a living entity. So it can be a human being, it can be a plant, but it's really about to care. And it's a program that was actually created 3 years ago when I came back at the company. It was the fruit of a long reflection of Francois and Sébastien, the two founders, to say, okay, the brand is going well, is doing well. We are having a good growth in the sales, and it is generating a good added value and financial resources. And how can we give that back also to the communities, because they have good programs to share with employees, with like the direct ecosystem of Veja, but they were really thinking about how can we share more of this economical and of these resources, of this wealth with the local communities and the ecosystems we work with. So basically, originally, they were thinking of maybe creating a foundation, a company foundation that is quite classical in the business as usual. So you can have your business as usual, and then when you get a lot of resources and the company has created a lot of money, then you create a foundation, and then you do philanthropic activities. So the main, let's say that like a classical example would be the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So Bill Gates did a lot of business with very aggressive practices, and then he created a foundation with philanthropic actions, but it doesn't impact Microsoft's business activities. So Zelar was created exactly to avoid that. First, because Veja is not doing business as usual. The DNA of the company and the brand has been integrating these practices for social and environmental impact since the beginning, as you explained very well, Dorothée, and as in the case and just now. But the idea was like, okay, what can we do more? How can we increase that impact? So Zelar is a program that is focusing, that is dedicating, investing resources, financial, human resources in projects that are completely focused on our social and environmental impacts. So in that way, it's kind of a foundation, or maybe I like to say that it's almost like an NGO inside the company. But we work directly with Veja's activities. So that's the main difference with the foundation, that generally is not allowed to work directly with business activities because of a conflict of interest. In our case, we did not create a foundation. We don't have any tax advantages, reductions, but all the money that we will invest for this project, those program, is completely connected to what we do on the field with the sourcing practices that we have. So how does it work? Basically, we dedicate part of the business. Oh my God, I have a blank now. Part of the business money. I lost the word in English. Chiffre d'affaires.
Revenue.
Yes, thank you. That's such a basic word, but okay. So we dedicate part of Veja's revenue, annual revenue, to this program, and we are able to work also almost like a lab, because we have the luxury of being able to innovate and test and experiment a lot of new practices, but always with the focus on social and environmental impact. So we don't buy anything, we don't sell anything, we invest in people's well-being, in people's living conditions, in restoring or degraded ecosystems, etc. So the main focus is that it's really an impact multiplier on social and environmental issues of our supply chains.
That's great. So tell us more about your engagement in the rubber supply chain. This case study focused on the rubber sourcing program of Veja, but as you can imagine, to produce a shoe, you also need cotton. And you mentioned you actually oversaw that program, and you need leather. And so there are other ingredients, but the case focused on rubber sourcing. And I'd be keen to hear, what does Zelar do with those communities in the Amazon? What are their main challenges, and how do you see Veja's role in addressing these challenges?
Yes, so as Zelar is concerned, we have, I would say that part of, our main projects in the program are linked to the rubber supply chain, which of course, as you explained very well, is full of challenges, as the region is one of the highest rates of deforestation, and the Amazon is also one of the poorest regions of Brazil, so a lot of challenges there. Some of them depend on us. Unfortunately, most of them don't, but still we do our part and what we can to address those challenges. So the biggest, talking about the local challenges as human rights challenges, I would say that, yes, we have to maybe separate the ones that we can have an impact on, and the ones that are really about the local context, which are quite high challenges and sometimes very indirect to us, at least. So the outside challenges, let's say, we have a lot of, we can observe, as far as the region is concerned, a lot of course, poverty issues, but specifically when I see as outside, or more further, more indirect challenges, a lot of problems of violence against indigenous communities, against environmental activists and leaders, social and environmental leaders. So this is one of the main challenges, I would say, as part as human rights. Gold mining, also illegal gold mining activities that are creating a lot of problems of labor, exploration, of prostitution, of everything that comes connected to illegal activities. I think I don't need to explain it much more. And as far as we observe, as far as our activities are concerned, what I would say as the main challenge is, of course, poverty. As I said, it's still one of the poorest regions in Brazil. And also, that's something we kind of discovered. We could have known, but it was much more formalized with the program we led now with Zelar, is about gender violence. So this is one of the biggest challenges, I think, as far as I mean, on my point of view, is quite an important challenge. So it's linked to, I will maybe just talk about one project that we implemented on the Zelar program with the rubber supply chain, to give you a more concrete idea of what we are doing. So we started 2 years ago to work on gender issues in the rubber supply chain. This is something it might be crazy because Veja is doing a lot of social activities and best practices, yet the gender issues had not been tackled yet. So 2 years ago, I started this program for women that I call women of the forest, or rubber women, because we realized that we've been working for almost 20 years with rubber in the Amazon, and we've been talking for almost 20 years of the producers. But when we say it in French or in Portuguese, it's masculine. And we've been working literally really with men, because when we organize a commercial negotiation with the cooperative and all the informative meetings, we only have men coming, and when women would come, they would just stay mute. So we started to investigate a little bit more about that, and I was always asking women, oh, so do you do rubber too? And they were always saying, no, I just help my husband. Okay, what do you do? Oh, I go to the forest and I open the trail, and then I help collecting what they call the milk, so the rubber liquid. Then I help filter it, and sometimes I do a little bit like the bills, counting. Okay, so you are doing rubber. It's just that you call it helping, but you are actually participating directly or indirectly to the rubber production, because it's a family production. There is no employees it's really a family business. So sometimes women participate, sometimes the teenagers, young adults participate as well, but they are completely invisible. What is the impact of that? It's not only a matter of feminism, it's mostly because when women don't perceive themselves as rubber producers, they are completely, first, they're not valued, they're not valorized socially. So inside, within the household, within the community, within the cooperative, and within the Veja supply chain, because we would talk about men producers. And what is the consequence of that in terms of social issues? Women are being much more vulnerable, as they don't they don't earn any revenue from the rubber when they participate to the production. So they will always do the bill in the name of the husband, and the land will be in the name of the husband, etc. What is the consequence of that? If, for example, the women want to divorce, or if she's suffering violence, she's not able to leave the household, because she's totally dependent on the husband. And also, if she comes to the retirement, she will not perceive anything as well. So it has concrete social impacts to not recognize the role of women. So we've been doing for 1 year now, and we continue that in other regions. So in the state of Acre, we started in the Chico Mendes Reserve to do some workshops, inviting only women. It's not against men. It's just that we perceive that we can have 20 women. If we have 5 men, women will not talk. They will stay very shy. And it's also a question of cultural legacy. But it's very complex to work on gender issues in that region. So we have to be very careful with, of course, we're not arriving there, talking about, let's stop with machismo and patriarchat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patriarchy. Yeah.
Yeah, patriarchy. No, we don't use that kind of approach. It's very sensitive. It's very inclusive also for men, but we want to give more visibility to women. So that's one of the main projects that we have as a Zelar program. So as you can see, it's connected to our supply chain activities, yet it's not about selling and buying rubber. Still, we work directly with women that are part of the families who produce the rubber. With that project, we discovered that, in fact, Brazil is the fifth country in the ranking of feminicides, and the state of Acre was the first until 2023. It was the first state of Brazil in terms of gender violence. So we are not talking about something like that we invented, that we created. It's a reality, and we'd also discovered that once we create this space of trust with women, as anywhere in the world, when women feel free to talk, unfortunately, the question of violence comes up. So that's another issue that I want to definitely tackle as our responsibility as a company, that we are buying in regions where we know that the gender violence is an important issue. Yet it's not easy because we remain a company that buys rubber. So what is our credibility, our legitimacy to work on that and to tell people what they should do? We don't have that. So we have to go very carefully, very slowly with local partners. And your point, Dorothée, about building trust and capacity with local stakeholders is absolutely fundamental. We can only do that kind of projects because we have this relationship, very close relationship, daily relationship almost, with local cooperatives, with local associations, community leaders that are really supporting our work, and we support their work. I will stop there because I can talk 2 hours about that.
Thank you, Violette. This is a really powerful example. And while I was visiting the local rubber tapper community in the forest, I actually witnessed one of these workshops that was organized by Veja, but conducted through an NGO called SOS Amazonia. And the way to bring the women to the table was actually the business model of Veja. I was like, can we explain to you how we organize our prices, and they actually asked the women, do you know how much we pay and how, the price for the rubber is composed, which different elements it has. So it was sort of an education from the company about their business to the women in the community. But the second part of the workshop also dealt with these broader issues from like domestic violence and the fact that there are many very young parents, primary schooling ends when they are 12. If they would like to go to secondary schooling, they would have to leave the forest. And many don't have that opportunity, so they stay and they get married very early, and they sometimes have 3 kids by the time they're 18, 19. So I met the incredibly young mothers. They all brought their children. There was childcare for the children during this workshop so that the mothers could fully participate. But clearly, it's a context in which also the remoteness of those communities creates challenges. So if there's a case of domestic violence, who do you report this to? Do you think the police will come out to these so-called easy access communities? And then who is the police? Might be your cousin or someone in the family. So there are structural challenges in those remote areas that I don't think one company alone can address. But engaging and empowering these women in local communities, I think, is something a company in the context of their sourcing program, they can do, and it does support those women in communities a great deal. And maybe quick follow-up question, as you said, building the trust, and you can do that in the communities where you have established relationships. As you now expand the sourcing programs, beyond Acre and beyond Brazil even. How does this work? You know, how can you support those communities in a similar way? Are there, like, the pilots that you've run in the Chico Mendes Reserve? Have you come up with sort of a blueprint and a model that can be plug and play, you know, in other communities? Is this something that you plan doing, or how will this work?
Yes, definitely. The idea is to scale up. So we started with the state of Acre, but now we are preparing a second phase for this, taking the example of those gender workshops for other states where we buy the rubber. So unfortunately, I discovered that, I kind of knew, but I thought it was going to be more simple. I thought we could quite kind of copy and paste,
Right.
and it's not possible.
Right.
Even if we are still in the Amazon, we are still in the rubber supply chain, and we would think that it's just copy paste, but it's not. It's when you change the state, so for example from Acre to Amazonas, then it's a completely different reality, and the logistics is different. You have some access that is by water, by boat, and others it's by car. Everything changes, and the local context also, because we discovered that some regions are very advanced in terms of gender issues. They even have a super great association of women, and others never talked about the issue. So it's very diverse. But still, I mean, we are scaling up the project and the workshops in general. But we always need to adapt. And still in Acre, in every community, we needed to adapt. Our partner, local partner, SOS Amazonia, the NGO that we trusted for this project, they always need to adapt to the local context. One community is going to be very open-minded, and other is going to be a bit more complex. So it's an everyday adaptation. But I think that our model is that it's about everyday adaptation, and still applying the same model or the same philosophy. So we want to scale up, but still we will always adapt to local context. And about the sourcing, rubber sourcing expansion in general. So yes, the company has grown, and we have been working with more regions, and also sometimes even going out of Brazil. For rubber, not yet. For rubber, we are still just in Brazil, but for cotton, for example, we are buying today also Peruvian cotton.
Yes.
But I think that as far as we keep applying sharp criteria in our sourcing practices, and we keep applying the same model as you said, about trust and close relationships with local stakeholders, to source directly from producers, work with the bonus. I mean, the 4 themes you gave, I think that's about, yes, this we can copy paste, but always adapting to the local context. And for that, there is no magical recipe. We need to expand also to to increase the resources we dedicate to the sourcing program. So to be able to do that in the same way as we used to do it only with the Chico Mendes Reserve, where Veja started everything 20 years ago, now working with, I think, 5 different states and 2,700 families in rubber. Of course, we need more people if we want to guarantee that. So we have now a bigger team for the rubber supply chain that are from there, that are based locally. And this team is expanding because we really need and we really want to keep that that proximity with the local partners.
That's great. And you just mentioned a figure which I need to update in my case and on my slides, because I saw that the program has grown to 1,500 families. Now you mentioned 2,700. I mean, that's, within like 18 months or like,
that's just really the impressive. 5 states, I'm not sure. Maybe because I think it's reducing, but 2,700 families, I'm quite sure about the rubber. Okay. Yes, it's expanding. Yeah.
I'll double check, and it's impressive, and you're taking a lot on your own. So a related question, have you tried to, you can't do this alone. So have you considered teaming up with other companies, for example, to help you with the trust building and also the programs that you believe are necessary to adapt and necessary to offer in some of the sourcing contexts that you're active in. I mentioned that Michelin is exploring, and I will have a call with them next week, so I can tell you what they told me, but isn't there a way to do some of these things together? And of course, governments have pledged to help save the Amazon, and shouldn't there be funds available also for you for the Zelar program, to get access to public funding, since you have a proven track record of, supporting, slowing down deforestation? Isn't there a way for you to create a public-private partnership to advance some of the things you've outlined here that you've piloted and are now hoping to grow in the future?
Yes, definitely. So that's part of our objectives as the Zelar program is concerned. Okay, so we have two different ideas here. So the public-private partnerships and fundings and cooperating with other companies. About the public funding, and yes, we definitely have this objective, and indeed we have one project, for example, in the cotton Zelar program that we actually, in which we received public funding from the German government. So the cooperation programs that are very classical, like GIZ, AFD in France, and all the program you said, classical development, international development programs that are actually every day more eager to finance projects involving companies, private players, because it's a way to have a market guarantee, because there have been a lot of NGO projects in the past that were very great, but that would create new products and working with supply chains, but with no market in the end. So today, public-private partnerships are really valued by international financiers and donors, because they know that the company is going to enter not only with the resources for the project, but also as a market guarantee for the product. So definitely, it's something we want to develop, and it's already ongoing and inclusive, including for the Rubber Women project. I'm looking for this type of international donations. About companies and private players, it's something that I wanted also to develop. I wish in the future I could find a way to cooperate, because I really believe that we can work on a landscape approach. So just picking a territory and working all the actors, all the players, stakeholders that are involved or interested in that territory to work together for the social, for the good. Let's say. Yet it's quite difficult, and we have been. Veja is quite open. So if you go to the Veja website, you can find the prices we pay for rubber, for cotton, how much people are paid in the factories. This is something that is definitely not common. I've been working for other companies, and I can definitely tell it's not common.
No.
So we are super open, and when a company comes to the region and wants to know more and how do we work, we open everything. In general, we show our contracts, and because we want to inspire other players of the market. But the difficulty today, I would say that it has not really come to a collaboration. It's more what I see is that we have more a role of inspiration. So companies that would like to do the way we want, or that are interested in the story we tell, but they just want the story. Sometimes they don't want to invest the same amount of resources, human resources, financial resources, when it comes to negotiating the prices with the cooperatives. Then unfortunately, what I've been witnessing, it's not to really value Veja more than others, but it's really about what I observe on the field.
Right.
that we see a lot of other companies that come and wants to copy, but then when the moment it comes to really put the money on the table, it's a bit more complex. So I wish we would collaborate with other companies and keep inspiring for best practices, because this is what Veja is about. So
Thanks. That's really interesting. I think you're a bit too far ahead of the curve, you know. So for now, you inspire. But I also mentioned that EU regulations, you know, from CSDDD to CSRD will now require companies to have better traceability to ensure that they're not part of deforestation, that they engage with stakeholders, all elements that are already built into your program. Companies will have to prove that they do that, and they might push them to a point where they're also willing to truly collaborate and put money on the table. But let's see about that. I've mentioned at the beginning of today's class that I participated in Puma's stakeholder dialogue last week. It was the 20-year anniversary for Puma to organize this annual event. And I did talk to a number of people about the Veja model. So I'm using it to give them ideas too, because I do believe other athletic footwear companies could certainly apply this sourcing model for rubber as well and team up with you, but let's see about that. All right, now I want to give you the chance to ask a question. Can I see, can you raise your hand? Are you ready? A question for Violette. I have many more questions. I could go on forever. Yes, please. I'll repeat the question. Do you want to come to the front? Because otherwise you cannot hear. Please come. It's easy. Otherwise I would have to repeat your question, you know, for the microphone. Otherwise Violette can't hear you. Okay. Right.
So I had a question about the women's producers' payments, because since it's a family production, is it even possible, or do you have plans to ensure like women's financial independence?
Yes, so that's a good question. Actually, the idea is to balance the payments to men and to women, because actually they can be both members of the cooperative. They don't do it, but usually just the men are members of the cooperative, so they do the bills in their names and they receive the payments. It doesn't mean that the women cannot spend the money, but still nothing goes through her name. So we are just trying to balance, and just maybe the men will, the women to be part of the cooperative. So first to register and be an official member of the cooperative, so that when they receive, for example, an invitation to participate to the cooperative's annual meeting, the women will feel invited also. And we also are working with the cooperative to have this gender approach, so that when they do the invite, to insist that it's for the family and both men and women should come, and also young people, because it's also another issue about the youth contribution. And about receiving the money, it's just that we tell women, okay, your husband can still continue to have his own bills, but do yourself sometimes, at least in an ideal world, 50-50, you know, but at least to have your own bills with your name, so that you receive some money and you have, hopefully an increasing independence, financial independence.
That's great. And I really love that you changed the public communication about the seringuero, which is a male form of talking about the rubber tapper, to a neutral term, namely rubber producer families, right? Producer families, to make it neutral and inclusive of all family members. So now I didn't ask for another voluntary question, but I have a master student here who joined us just to see you, and she certainly has a question for you, Violette. Julia.
Hi, so my question digs a little bit deeper into the problem about women's rights. And I want to ask, it sounds very nice, and I think you can really empower the women, but aren't the men the problem? Like, do you also have some approaches to like convince them to change their behavior?
That's a very good question. Yes, we do. It's something we discussed and debated a lot internally in the program and with the local partners. Should we include men or not? And because we know that, of course, we also need to work with men so that we can change things. We decided as a first step to only do only women workshops, because as I said, we really observed that we can have 2 men and 20 women, and it's gonna change completely the atmosphere and the trust they can feel to talk in public and do this kind of new exercise for them. So as a first step, we chose not to work with men, or at least in the communities. Still, we work with them as leaders in the cooperatives, because most of leaders in the cooperatives, I mean, like the directors and our men, usually. We have some cooperatives led by women, but it's still a minority. So as a first step, we chose to do, okay, let's do only women first, because we really have this huge gap, and women are not able to have this leadership, and they are really, really far from men in that area. Yet, for the second phase, we are thinking of how can we include men and maybe have 2 different workshops, one with men and one with women. Also because we want to include women without excluding men. So it's quite a challenge. So yes, we are thinking of a different methodology so that we can include more men in that work.
Great, I didn't know about that yet, so fantastic. Another question, maybe last question. We're running out of time as always. Anyone? Yes, come to the front. One last one.
Hi, so my question is, I think your market is kind of growing because there are consumers who value like the environmentally conscious or like human rights conscious behaviors. But how are you planning to expand the market to consumers who aren't as environmentally conscious or like human rights conscious? Like what are their challenges and how are you planning to overcome them? Especially since you mentioned that you don't put a lot of money into marketing. Zero. So yeah, that's my question.
Right.
Yes. Thank you very much. Actually, it's quite interesting because our consumers have both profiles. We have consumers like historical consumers, clients that are completely fan of Veja's values and that are, I mean, they fan, it's not the right word, but they feel really connected to our social and environmental values. So they buy the shoes for that reason, especially. But we also have a big part of our clients that are just fans. In that way that it works. They are just fans of the shoes, of the design, and because it's become fashionable, or because the princess in the UK was wearing it, and that's the reason they buy it. And it's totally fine. I think that's really something that interesting about fair trade products and markets, that we should just accept that it's okay. I mean, we don't need people to be buying the products just because they are ethical. If they don't like it. And I remember Tristan Lecomte, who is actually he's a friend of François and Sébastien founders, and he was one of the pioneers of fair trade chocolate in France and in Europe, actually. And he was saying, okay, fair trade chocolate has been for years a product that was had clients that were buying the chocolate just because it was fair, but it was just, the taste was awful. So it was not growing. I mean, it has no impact because the chocolate just was not good. And what do you want of a chocolate? You want it to be good. What do you want of a shoe brand? You want it to be cool. You want it to be proud of wearing it, and you want it to be beautiful. And he was saying, okay, the success story of the brand that he created, that is called Alter Eco, is because he created a chocolate that is super fair, that works directly with cooperatives, that builds trust, that cares about the environment, but it's a very good chocolate. So if you taste it, you are, wow, that's so good. And that's why people started to really buy ethical products. So I like this image of the chocolate, because it's the same with shoes. It's okay. I mean, we have a big, I don't know exactly, because I think we don't have, never did the investigation, but we know that we have part of our clients that are just buying because it's cool and they like it, and it's fine. And if when they buy it, they discover, because we do this communication, when you open the shoebox, you have all the information about the social and environmental values. If we manage to reach them a little bit about those values when they buy it just because it's cool and it's fashion, then it's a bonus even. So I think the important is the impact we have in the Amazon, in the northeast of Brazil, and that's fine.
That's a great analogy with chocolate. It both needs to be in place. Indeed, a great product and one that is being produced based on principles that correspond to a commitment to human rights and environment. I think this was actually a great final word, Violette. This was super. Thank you so much for joining us. Round of applause for Violette, please.
My pleasure.
It was great. Thanks so much. We'll disconnect. Yeah, I have one last word for the students to prepare for next week. I want to show them one last slide. So we'll say goodbye to you, Violette.
Bye. Thank you. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to contact me or give my email, or with pleasure.
That's very nice of you. Thank you so much. We'll debrief.
Bye.